If you took all the money in the world, divided it equally among every person, and came back 5 years later, the rich would be rich again and the poor would be poor again. Why? Because the biggest difference isn't in their bank accounts, it's inside their brains. And if you want to find out how rich actually think about money and how you can start thinking about money the same way, you're at the right place. I went from a very usual young tradie making barely enough money to survive into someone who can now live a decently comfortable life and continue his entrepreneurship journey and my wealth building plan. Everything started a few years back at my first job. I was an electrician, just a usual employee. We were working on this corporate office building, installing these strangely depressing white lights and cables into the ceilings. I was making exactly $6 an hour, which sounds like nothing, and let's be honest, it was. But it was my first real job, first money as an apprentice, a little welcome in reality. As the weeks slowly passed, at the end of every month of my life, I'd get a sudden notification from my bank that $1,183 arrived into my bank account before expenses. And don't get me wrong, this can be a life-changing money for someone somewhere, but I just deep down knew that there's something more to life than this, and this is what the vast majority of people are doing their entire lives, and there has to be other way to make money without being dependent on a third party or an employer. But at the time, I didn't think about it too much until this one moment happened with a guy in a black Porsche, but we'll get to that in a second. I was slowly figuring out that this is not it when 200 hours of my life every month leaves me with $200 to $500 after living expenses, and that's far from a long-term wealth building system. This is a survival mode and a reality for many people. It's an unfortunate place where you don't have a time to think about investing long-term, you're focused on surviving. This is a so-called scarcity tunnel. And many jobs are designed very close to a scarcity tunnel. You get paid just enough to not leave, survive, and show up the next day. Now, it's just dressed up as a usual lifestyle. Of course, saying that a usual job cannot provide a comfortable lifestyle would be a stretch, but in many cases it truly won't. My third month in the company was when my entire thinking shifted. We were driving home from work on a highway in our company van, and I was scrolling on my phone, and I briefly looked out a window, and we suddenly got passed by an old black Porsche, probably a 911. And strangely enough, it wasn't the car that caught my attention. It was the glance at the freedom. I found out that for me, being wealthy was never as much about the material stuff or the parties or whatever. It was mostly about having the freedom to do whatever I want whenever I want and not being tied to one place. It eventually got me thinking that the person in that Porsche, they're not somebody's loyal hardworking employee grinding 9 to 5, going home in a van after a shift. He most likely figured out how to provide a big amount of value to a certain market, he solved a specific problem and is possibly actively selling it. Because that's what entrepreneurship is at its core, supply and demand, finding a problem, selling a solution and leveraging that further into a point where you can extract yourself out of the equation. The same way my boss did, we'll get to that soon enough. The Porsche guy learned how to build something that pays him whether he shows up or not, figured out how to stop selling his time by the hour and build a product or a service system that works for him even when he's asleep or not around. He's not the guy in a helmet breaking his back every day for a small cut each month. He's positioned very differently than a regular person is thought to be positioned their entire lives. So much of us live in a conviction that this survival lifestyle is just how life goes. School for years, job for years, maybe some money at 65 and death, right? But not really. This is how you accepted your life to be because no other way was shown to you, and that's a huge difference. Study, get a job, get married. This is really what we hear since childhood, right? So I eventually started my research. I was genuinely eager to find out why the rich are rich. People with money are problem solvers, and they're good at leveraging. The more problems they solve, the more money flows into their pocket. Let's explain it in an absolutely most simple scenario. A detailing business is working on their new garage and there are no lights at all. Well, that's a problem. A demand that needs someone with a certain skill. They need an electrician, right? So now an electrical business or a contractor in a local area is a valuable solution. They're ready to give their money to for fixing their problem. And the business or a contractor with the best marketing, reviews or prices is most likely gonna get that contract and make money on it. Which ultimately is a solution for the detailing business, and a contractor will get money in exchange for the value provided. The rich think in solutions and value provided to clients. The main difference is that a solo contractor does it whenever he wants, sets his own prices, usually an hourly rate of $50 to $150 or a price by light installed, it depends. The business owner sets the price the same way a contractor will, or usually even higher, and sends his employee to do it but pays him only a fraction of the rate, let's say $25 to $30 an hour, and gives him some long-term benefits. So that way, the business owner is taking himself out of the selling my own time equation, and he's no longer limited by time. It's an arbitrage, and it's all about positioning. So with all honesty, which position makes the least money? Yes, employee carries the least risk, but also the least reward, which leads to my next point about a rich and a poor mindset. Poor mindset, and I say that without judgment, it might sound like I'm roasting people for having a normal job, no. But poor people trade time for money in most cases their whole lives with no other plan. They favor certainty, a predictable outcome, a fixed salary, and a no risk whatsoever. And that feels safe. You can't blame anybody for that. Unfortunately, that doesn't pay that well, and one saying goes, fortune favors the bold. Poor people mostly believe that working hard is what builds wealth. Playing within the rules, but if hard work would make you rich, the donkey would own the farm, right? Napoleon Hill said, if you're one of those people who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought out of your mind because it's not true. Providing value of some sort to an actively paying market and leveraging it will make you rich. On the other side, rich mindset finds a way to create value that doesn't require them to be physically present every hour. A value that can be scaled further using the already mentioned leverage. It tolerates risk, it thinks in systems and not shifts. It asks not how much will I get paid this month, but rather where's a problem I can fix and charge money for. It can be fixing a light, it can be managing social media or helping people lose weight. The harder and more complex the problem is, the more money it also makes. And then they use other people / employees as a leverage for their own business and benefit. And the gap between those two ways of thinking, that's the whole game. Now you just need to learn about the game and get good at it. Satisfy the demand with a quality supply without a third party and find people who can do it as good or even better than you can. Easier said than done, I know, but that's really your only chance if you want to get rich. Value, leverage, becoming a point where money flows through. And the living proof of this for me was my boss. He spent roughly 2 months on a vacation while we were carrying cables in a scorching sun, red like tomatoes, everybody sunburned. He was tanning, ordering drinks by the sea. And after doing all of this hard work the entire month, we got a pat on the shoulder in the form of approximately $1,000 sent from his beach chair. Meanwhile, he made like minimum $20,000 that month in profit from beach. And I was like, goddamn. So this is why a lot of the ordinary people hate their boss so much. Life is not fair, money is not fair. Money is where value is, and school system is not designed to create a providing entrepreneurs. They're taught to support systems of those who had balls. And I wasn't angry at my boss or anything. I respected that, and I was enlightened, because that's when I understood the difference. He built a system, he took a risk, figured it out along the way, built the thing, and now the thing runs without him having to be there every day. Because we were the pawns making it run, making sure his projects are finished as best as possible, and he was smart enough to position himself on top of it rather than inside of it. Most people look at that and feel resentment. I looked at it and thought, okay, that's the blueprint, that's how it's done. And after going through this mindset shift, I knew I was ready for a change, and I went for it. And it was the best decision of my life. This change gave me the control over my life and a reward that I was looking for many years. I eventually became a self-employed contractor. With the skills I had, I found out I can't be underselling myself anymore. And I went from $6 as an employee all the way to $41 an hour, just from a realization and adjustment alone. I'm currently still gathering experience and specialized skills in my field, and by the next year, I would like to start my own small company in Europe, and the first big goal is to get 3 to 4 good people into my team and pay them more than well for the jobs we're gonna do. So, if something I said today actually made you think about your situation differently, then I want you to do just one thing. Think about what you know, what skills you have, what value you carry around in your head every day that you've been undercharging for or not charging for at all. Because that thing, whatever it is, might be the starting point for your version of going from $6 to $40 and beyond. I'll be going deeper into this in future videos, specifically how to actually build leverage from scratch, money, and more finance tips. So make sure you subscribe, because if you're into wealth building and finance, that's a topic you really don't want to miss. See you in the next one, guys. Peace.